Today's question is, lawyers of Reddit, what's your best most badass, I rest my case moment?
I was on the losing end of this one. I was representing a pro bono defendant who was attempting to regain custody of her children. The family division attorney was laying out his case to the judge for why my client wasn't ready, and his final point was that my client had refused emotional counseling to avoid violent fits of rage that she had inflicted on her children. On cue, my client jumps up screaming, "Fuck you, judge lady. You a stupid cunt. Fuck y'all for taking my fucking kids, you fucking cunts." I just caught the opposing attorney's smirk of satisfaction as I got up to usher my client out of the courtroom. Not a case-winning moment, but a motion-winning one for sure. Think of cases like a big conflict, with motion hearings as little conflicts. Opposing attorney was insisting that rule meant they could do X. I tried, multiple times, to point out rule literally did not say that. During the hearing, the judge reached behind them, grabbed their rules of civil procedure, basically a dictionary of rules, placed it in front of the other attorney, and said, "Show me where Rule A says X." Other attorney did not take the hint, read rules out loud for a brutal 5 minutes, and gave the book back. I said, "Judge, I have nothing to add." It was pretty fun. Opposing counsel decided that I had coached my witness and gave him lines to repeat, that he was lying. Short version is that he asked the witness if he spoke to me before he testified. Witness said he had. Attorney looked like he thought he had me. Attorney asked the witness what I told him, what instructions I gave him. Witness looked him dead in the eye and said, "First thing he told me was to tell the truth no matter what." He said the lawyer is never the one who goes to jail, that he isn't going to jail for me, and if I lie, I'm on my own. Attorney looked like someone took the air out of him. Everyone in the courtroom simultaneously looked at me. Only time I smirked or laughed in court. I wanted to put my feet up on the table like I was Vincent LaGuardia Gambini, hands behind my head, and say, "I'm done with this guy." Not a lawyer, but I got hit hard in an auto accident as a new driver and ended up in front of a magistrate. I was turning left facing a hill on a 4-lane road. My traffic signal was yellow, and I saw the car coming up the hill was slowing to a stop and the other lane empty. I turned left and got absolutely smashed by an oncoming car. Other driver was incredibly off. I was pretty sure he was drunk, but it was probably just adrenaline, who knows. But I was convinced I had done everything right, but the cops cited me for failing to yield the right-of-way on a left-hand turn. I refused to accept the citation, so I represented myself in front of the magistrate against one of the county prosecutors. He called the traffic officer, the other driver, and after hearing what the other driver described, I saw my opportunity. You see, he testified that he was driving up the hill and saw the light turning. He didn't want to miss the light, so he passed the driver in front of him to make it through before it turned red. The other lane has been clear, but he sped around the slowing car to make it through the light. I cross-examined him. "So you saw me turning across the intersection?" "Yes." "And then you sped up?" "Yes." No further questions. The citation was dropped. One quick and one longer one. Lawyers might like the latter more. Asking a judge to place my client on probation, with mental health treatment support and supervision as well as drug treatment, for a few minor misdemeanors. DA is on board. Judge asks my client if he understands the plea deal, if his head is clear and he hasn't consumed any medicine or other thing that might cloud his judgment. Judges ask this to make sure pleas cannot be withdrawn. Client's response, "I'm high, bitch," and begins laughing his head off. Judge is incidentally an openly gay man with a bit of a temper. Judge screams at client, "SIT down," and multiple deputies run to the jury box, where my client is kept in custody, as the rest of the courtroom bursts out laughing. 2. Presiding head, judge denied a motion of mine. It was a pitch S, which is a request that the judge review confidential police files for evidence of misconduct to use impeaching the officer. No, you don't get that stuff automatically, because police unions fight not to release it even when prosecutors, much less defense attorneys, ask for it. That's another topic. I filed a writ, which is a way to get an appellate court/division to look at issues in the case before the case is over. These are 1. a fair bit of work, and 2, hardly ever granted. About 1/10 appeals are granted, and these are extraordinary for appeals. Writ granted, judge reversed and ordered by the appellate court to grant the motion and dig through the dredges for officer misconduct. At the hearing on the remitter, order by higher court for lower court to do something, the judge read the remitter and then said something like, "Who would deny a pit chess?" with a bit of incredulity. I just stood there, smiling at him, as he flipped through the court minutes. "Oh, it was me." Eye contact. I'm pretty sure I was still grinning. Next handful of closed call motions I had in front of him resulted in rulings in my favor. I wasn't a lawyer at the time. This was a high school mock trial, but it was fun nonetheless. For those unfamiliar, mock trials are like normal trials, but fake. As a result, it doesn't go until arguments are exhausted, but instead each participant is given a time limit and has to make their case within that period, so everyone can go home in a timely fashion. The time limit was 10 minutes for us, but you could go slightly over if needed. Anyway, we were competing against a local school in a case that centered around an alleged hostile work environment. I was one of 3 attorneys doing direct examination in my team, and my witness, playing the company's CEO, happens to be a close friend of mine, so we were well prepared. At trial, I get through all my questions, passed across, and that's when the fun began. The opposing attorney got through about 6 questions before my friend gave an answer he didn't expect. Rather than simply moving on with his questions, or jumping to another line of questions, opposing counsel chose to repeat his questions slightly differently, in a way it would have been proper for me to object to with asked and answered. I didn't. Instead, I sat there, silently, as this poor fucking kid spends his whole time trying and failing to get the specific answer he wants out of my friend. So, after 10 minutes of him restating his 6th question to no effect, I objected. The judge, sick of listening to the same question, said something to the effect of, "I would hope so. You spot my plan yet?" Rather than object the question had been asked and answered already, I simply stated the cross had used their full allotted time and that he shouldn't be allowed to continue. Remember, he was 6 questions into his argument, so all he had gotten in his 10 minutes was confirmed my friend's name, age, place of work, job title, and that they had meetings at work. I shouldn't need to tell you none of that is particularly useful for proving a hostile work environment claim, but I did anyways. The opposing counsel looked very confused when he realized what had happened, and the judge kindly suggested he move past that question and finish his examination quickly. He moved on, got slightly further into his questions, but not far enough, and eventually had to stop due to time. Still nowhere near where you needed to get to. My score wasn't particularly high. After all, I missed an easy, asked and answered, objection for 10 minutes, but higher than his, and we won as a result. Good times. Another mock trial story. Me and a different buddy were running late, and definitely stole a parking space from someone while attempting to make it inside quicker. Get inside, and the same dude whose parking spot I just stole walks in a minute or 2 after me. Turns out it was the judge who was presiding over our case that day. We lost that one, after the judge awarded bonus points to the other school. It was ostensibly for a very clever argument they made, but I maintain it was because he recognized me and my friend, and was unhappy about the parking spot. So I rested one case with a sneaky trick, and got another case RIP because of a parking dispute with the judge. This isn't what you're looking for, and I also, but it was satisfying to me. Long story short, my aunt and step-grandpa got a restraining order against me for my grandma, even though I was actually protecting my grams from them, and we were both crying as I was forced to leave the house. The cops never asked my grandma, who was in her right mind, if any of it was true. My own strip mall lawyer didn't believe me because why should he? I was calm the entire time on the stand and answered everyone calmly. My step-grandpa was hateful and basically used the time to repeat every awful lie he said about me my whole life that had nothing to do with how I treated my grandma. My aunt gets on the stand and her responses are filled with hate and jealousy. I couldn't really see her face because my lawyer was in front of me most of the time. We waited for the judge, and my lawyer told me even if the judge agreed with me, that wouldn't make them let me see my grandma again, so my best chance was to settle before the verdict with the stipulation that I have visitation rights and a schedule. I said that's fine, but make sure you tell them if I win I will sue them for falsely accusing me to get all my money back. They agreed to settle the matter, and as we continued to wait, their lawyer and the elder care advocate were chatting and laughing with me while they sat there pouting in silence. It wasn't one mic drop moment, but it was satisfying. After, my lawyer admitted he didn't believe they were making it up until my aunt was on the stand, and the look on her face was just so hateful and jealous every time she looked in my direction. And this is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment an anecdote or experience similar to the topic of the video. Leave your like, share if you liked the video, and lastly, don't forget to activate the little bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Bye-bye.